Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Sara Wiseman, and today we're going to go a little further in our teachings. I teach mostly weekly, mostly. I try to teach weekly on Tuesdays, so try and have this come out. And then every month I have a channeled forecast for the month. And then annually, if you haven't read it yet, I have the annual forecast for 2025 already out that's on the YouTube channel. So take a listen. Today we're going to talk about the idea of freedom from the cage. And I really think this is appropriate because one of the things I'm noticing as we dive into what's probably going to be a fairly turbulent world situation in the next few years, I would guess. That's what it's looking like. I want you to have this idea about the cage and your own freedom from suffering. You know, when I first started channeling back in early 2000, the first thing that came is the purpose of life is soul growth. And then the tagline on that was, you're here to transcend suffering. You're here to transcend suffering. And it's not just, for me, right? That would be cool, but it's for everybody. So I want you to kind of look at this idea of what cage you're in, and I'll be reading in just a moment about that. It's important to not, let's see, there are these ideas of manifesting that I've talked about as being old, like The Secret or Law of Attraction and so forth. And also this idea, when misunderstood, of thoughts become things. And I want to talk about this a little bit because this idea of being in the cage or freedom from the cage is about freedom from thought, freedom from incorrect thought. And when you are thinking a whole bunch of doom and gloom, it's not so much that you're going to attract that to you. It's that you're going to be attracted to more of it. You have these blinders on, doom and gloom, fear and suffering, doom and gloom, fear and suffering, and that's all you're going to be able to see. There's a whole world around you that is not fear and suffering and doom and gloom and pain, but because you've got this mental cage on, it's all you're able to get to. I'm going to read this. And so this is from the Gabriel Messages. You can get it on Amazon and so forth, or ask at your favorite bookstore and they can order it for you. Freedom from the cage. When you see your life from the lens of pain, your experience of life is not pleasant. It is as if your heart is trapped in a small, barbed cage where everywhere you turn is pain, pain, more pain. The truth is, the cage is in your mind. There is no need to stay in the cage. When we say the cage is your mind, we do not mean something fancy or absolute. There is no big secret to unlock. There is no special process. It is just looking with your mind at the limitation that your mind believes and discovering this is not so. For example, your mind, ego, personality may have a lot of beliefs and opinions about various aspects of yourself and your world, what you consider your life. These are the cage. The door is actually open. I used to have a person I worked with who read tarot magnificently. And she had the idea of one of the cards as being the bird in the cage. The bird in the cage is, the bird's in the cage, the door is wide open. The bird can come and go at any time. It just doesn't notice, or it just doesn't believe that it's possible. We get so trapped into our limitations that we create And really, that's not how the reality is. Really, what's available to us is so much bigger. So we all have these cages, and it takes a lot of work to free ourselves from these limiting belief systems. And sometimes when we come up against, we do a really good job of clearing out a lot of limiting belief systems, say. We work really hard on increasing our self-love, we do self-care, we get rid of all those narcissists and toxic people in our lives, we set boundaries, we accept ourselves as who we are. So we clear out a ton of these assigned belief systems that have been meant to keep us locked down. And yet there's another layer, which I suspect a lot of you guys are, and I'm working on. There's a deeper layer beyond that after you've done that initial sweep, which may take, decades. When we come to these deeper places, it gets a little trickier to look at our misbeliefs, because almost like we don't even want to admit that those are beliefs that we have. Maybe we come up into really deep ideas that we didn't know that we have, and then we see that we have them. Maybe we come up to deep ideas of separation, such as racism or genderism or inequalities, and maybe we think we're this beautiful, loving person, and then we come face to face with some of those really ingrained beliefs, and we're like, I have a feeling about this, and I don't like the person I'm seeing. Or maybe we have all of this attention to self-care and self-love and body positivity and boundaries and all of this, like we're doing this beautiful job taking care of ourselves, and then we come up to this state of like, you know what, I still feel really insecure. I've done all of this work, and that feeling of not being enough is still there. I've done all this work around the people that embedded me with those feelings, my parents or society or school or whatever, but it's still there, it's still lingering. And it feels so disappointing and so hard to still have after you've done so much inner work. You've done so much inner work, and yet these feelings of, we're just going to call them suffering, and this knowing that you're not yet liberated, you're not yet free in your mind, you haven't gotten there yet in this lifetime, you're still in the cage. Now, the good news is that you can get free of the cage. It's just going to take, after you've done that first work of examining, examine. Why do I think this? Why do I think this? Blah, 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 blah. Who gave me that idea? You got the full, you get it. Again, you have to do some action. You have to get out of those relationships that are toxic. You have to stop watching all that toxic stuff on, the screens and social media. You have to let go of all your addictions, or the certainly most of them. You have to get pretty clear. You have to take charge of the basics. You realize you're conscious, you have to take charge of the basic toxic influences that are rampant in society. And the next piece, this second layer of getting out of the cage, is really about you connecting to yourself as a conscious being all the time. So you don't necessarily have to say your issue is you feel low self-worth, or you feel insecure, or you're shy, or you still feel jealous of people. I'm just, you have your own. I might not be hitting the exact one that's right for you, but so you don't have to you don't have to, like the first layer, you had to kind of attack those head on, probably using tools that you can find like all over the place, because everyone's kind of working at the same shedding of stuff right now. The next layer is about your spiritual path. You aren't going to find these deeper answers from places that aren't as deep as you need to go. So the place you need to go is, of course, you could say within. I would say you go within to your soul self. Maybe you meditate. Maybe you have connection with your guides. Maybe you go into, you have a hermit space for a while. Maybe you have deep spiritual practices of quiet and music and reading. And you go in there, and what you're, maybe, and this is really important, this should have also been in that list, you deeply, deeply connect with the natural world. You deeply, deeply connect with your dream world. So you're becoming, maybe we say the first pass you can do at a psychological level of clearing out all this stuff, psychological and physical. The next pass is spiritual practice. And spiritual practice, as we discussed before, does not have to be done any certain way. You just have to give yourself time every day, like lots of time, hours of being in the awareness of consciousness as who you really are. So this may mean you are, deeply lightening your schedule. It may mean you're taking on a really deep study of something, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just means that you decide every time those thoughts come up of, oh, I'm not enough, I failed at this, I can't do this right, blah, 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 blah. Or, maybe you have the opposite. I'm so great, I'm so much better, I'm going to be better than, or any thoughts that are bringing you into the idea of being separate, better, or less than another are the cage, right? That is the cage. The idea is to get to the point of knowing yourself as, and the phrase is, the guides use it as one. You are one of one, the big one. We are part of, we're not separate from. And so being part of, there's no better than in infinite consciousness. There's no less than in infinite consciousness. You're just part of. Deep in ancient religions, I was raised sort of Protestant and then Catholic. So a lot of these embedded ideas of one of the main things, okay, I'm probably going to get this all wrong, but whatever, this is what I remember. One of the main things that Jesus was there to say is that you can be free of sin. So this was an idea that was appropriate for that time and place because everyone was really concerned with sin. Sin had been passed down as this thing, like you had to toe the line or you were going to sin and then it was all over. So if we translate some of those ideas forward into modern times where we don't have necessarily this concept of sin, because the world has gone so wild, morality isn't even, I don't know, it's just not really the same as it used to be. It's not the same ideas. So if we take that idea of, instead of sin or punishment or doing the wrong thing, all of that is suffering, right? Suffering is the cage. Suffering is the cage. And these ways of letting yourself first do that first effort of freeing yourself from those old beliefs, like beliefs about sin, beliefs about being punished, beliefs about having to do things a certain way. Get through all of that, and then start this deeper practice of letting go of suffering. I'm just gonna read this again. Hopefully I can find it again. Oh, maybe I lost it already. Well, anyway, this idea of learning to transmute suffering, and what would we transmute it into? Sometimes you might think, well, of course we'll transmute it into love. Isn't love the highest frequency? And the guides are like, no, it's not really love. Love is a part of it, but it's really all about oneness. It's really all about knowing yourself as one of one, recognizing yourself as conscious, and recognizing that everything is conscious, every other being, living and non-living, and beginning to inhabit your world on the basis of that largest, highest reality versus all of the lower realities that our modern world seems to be made of. Today, let's see, we've just started the Moon Astrology class 2025. Go to the website, it's there. Amazing. It takes you through the new and full moons. Every month you get 2 lessons on the correct date and time, and it gives you something to work with that relates to the energy of the time. It's a really popular class. I've been doing it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, maybe. I can't quite remember. And people really like it. It gives you that marker each month on some ideas to focus on. And then, of course, we have the Gabriel Messages book, which you can also get at the website. Thank you, and you can find me at sarawiseman.com. Thanks for listening.